Bears. Ahem. Bears Country Podcast. Welcome, everyone, to Bears Country Podcast. You are now in Bears Country. Per that. So, this is my third live podcast. There's a lot of stuff that happened today. I wasn't even planning on talking about this. I had a whole different thing planned, but we're going to try to squeeze some of that in. And we're going to have to talk about the big news of the day, which is some reports that have been coming out about trade talk for Teven Jenkins. And that's kind of concerning to me. So it would be none other fitting to have the perfect guest for that discussion tonight, which is going to be my co-host, Jordan T. Silvera of Bare Necessities. You might have seen me on his podcast. He's being so kind as to return the favor and join me on this one. So let's go ahead and bring Jordan in.
Good evening.
Jordan, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Dan, I am...
A little tired?
I'm sorry, I have to laugh because and you have to forgive me beforehand. I am going to try my absolute best to stay calm, cool, and collected. You know how much Teven Jenkins means to me as a player. No alcohol involved. I'm drinking just pineapple juice, but I tell you because people are going to be like, is he drunk? No, I'm just really upset about this whole scenario. So I will try to stay cool, calm, and collected, but I am...
You don't have to. I might join you in not being cool, calm, and collected. This
How are you,
news, I'm great. I'm doing excellent, man. I really appreciate you coming on here and joining me tonight. This is an honor to have you on here. You know, it's been a pleasure working with you on Bare Necessities and just kind of do some cross-pollinating here. Have you come on my show and kind of you get to be on my broadcast and kind of follow my lead this time. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah, I'll be your Huckleberry. I'm looking forward to it. This is fun.
Oh gosh, I don't like this news today about Teven Jenkins, and from what I've read, from what I've heard, it's that the Bears have been contacted about Teven Jenkins trade. I'm not sure if that's just the reporting of it, or if the Bears put it out there for a trade, and this is just the response that we're getting from it. I mean, what do you think about that?
I mean, here's the reality is that it's such a layered conversation with a ton of perspective and context that are needed regarding the entire scenario. But let's just kind of start at the beginning, try to break it down. I think on the surface, let's be clear. I know that a lot of people had concerns about David Kaplan and what he was reporting and the verification of legitimacy of it. That's fine. You can have those feelings. I think that at this point, though, it's only fair to give the man some credit. When you see Ian Rappaport and Mike Garafolo of NFL Network coming out, they don't put their name on something unless they can confirm it through three or four levels. So when you're seeing Ian Rappaport and Mike Garafolo talking about that, a couple things. Certainly when there's smoke, there's fire. I think that I don't want to say we're going to for sure see Teven traded, but I'd say it's much more likely now than not. But however, to be clear, the tweet, and if you want to pull it up, shorty, we can, but the language was something of the sense that calls have been received. Look, the phone line should always stay open. I don't care who your GM is. You can have Patrick Mahomes. The phone lines should always stay open to hear any offers.
Of course.
And so the calls were received. Phone lines are open. That's not a big red flag. The red flag of any of them, if you will, in the comment from Ian Rappaport was that there are trade talks that were had. Now, that's interesting because, I mean, again, I don't want to totally besmirch Ryan Poles here. The reality is that if somebody's calling, it's in your best interest to at least hear them out. And if the call is something as simple as, hey, Teven Jenkins, is he on the block? I mean, could be. What did you have in mind?
Right.
My duty, my obligation is to listen and say, what did you have up in offer? And let me hear that. Therefore, the moment that you decide to say, I'll give you a seventh, trade talks have now been had.
Exactly. That's exactly true. So, I mean, it doesn't mean that he's necessarily on the trade block. It just means that since the negotiations have been started,
Mhm.
there's where the reporting comes from. So, oh man, like you said, where there's smoke, there's fire. It's kind of like, why are they reaching out to try to ask the Bears if he's even available for trade?
Mhm.
Is it because insider information that we don't know? Obviously, uh, Eberflus came out and said he's not disclosing injuries, and he wouldn't talk about Teven Jenkins just as much as he wouldn't talk about anybody else. But the fact that he's not out there probably started to get the calls going to the Bears for him, right? Because
Sure.
I think everyone's kind of speculating the same thing, like what is going on with this kid? So why don't we just give him a call and see what's going on with Teven and see if they're maybe interested in trading him?
Well, that's, and I see Steve's asking a question here, and Steve, I'll get to you in just a second here. But I mean, that's really part of the issue here, Dad, is that I know nobody wants to hear this. And look, I promise I wasn't trying to bring the doom and gloom, but if they called about Justin Fields and somebody was willing to offer 3 first-round picks, I'd tell them to ship off Justin Fields today. I mean, this is the reality: is when you have nobody wants to face this. When you bring in a new regime, they are always going to listen to offers on players they did not pick. There is zero investment.
Right.
This is why the Bears are dysfunctional. This is why you have an issue. When you decided, and I'm very happy Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy are gone. But then you do not let them select players and then kick them out the door the next year, especially in Tevin's a smaller piece, but the Justin Fields one, for example, telling people right now, if Justin Fields has a bad year, and we're going to talk about this, I know you're very high on Justin Fields. I'm willing to converse about that. But if he has a bad year, do not be surprised when they had no ties to him. You bring in 2 people, and they get the benefit of the doubt as if Justin Fields hits, woohoo, we got our guy, no problem. But if Justin Fields fails, I always have the excuse in my back pocket that, look, George, wasn't my guy. It's only right that you do fair by me and you let me pick my quarterback to lead this team. That's the extension of what's going on with Teven Jenkins here. And I'll just real quick, Dan, let me answer Steve's question. The best possible compensation, that's tough. I mean, Brad Spielberger, Brad over at PFF, Pro Football Focus, they have a trade value chart with Fitzgerald, Spielberger. They have basically calculated it as last year, Teven Jenkins, the 39th overall pick. There was a trade of a third and a fourth, third rounder and some change. Basically, long story short, is it was the equivalent of a 16th overall pick. That is Kyle Hamilton range, Jahan Dotson in this year's draft. So you are essentially trading away the equivalent of what you spent a 16th overall pick for. The sad reality is that guy has shown 6 games, has shown not a clean bill of health with back surgery needed. And whether it's true or not, there is smoke that the guy is not practicing for whatever reason, injury, immaturity, fitness, doesn't click with the new group. So now you're trying to package and sell that 16th overall pick, 39th overall, if we're not including the trade packages, to get up to 39 to take them.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you my perfect 1 in a million scenario. It probably won't happen. I don't know why the Chargers would be stupid enough to do this. But when I was thinking about teams that would trade for Teven Jenkins, when I think about the teams that you're always looking for that final piece, that piece to push you over the edge. And it's funny because Teven Jenkins hasn't proven anything in the league to be a piece that would push you over the edge. But the Chargers are an example of a team that their biggest hole right now is at right tackle. It's Storm Norton and it's Trey Pipkins. If you already have the trade line open from trading Khalil Mack there, if you could somehow get Tom Telesco to throw you a 3rd-round pick, I'd taken the deal today because I don't know when you're going to get that back. I even have a hard time believing they'd give the 3rd. I think you're talking about a conditional 4th more realistically and probably a 5th or a 6th based on the issues that are there now.
I don't even know what to say to that.
I'm sorry, I know that was long-winded. It's just, this is what I mean. It's very deep and dense in the layers.
No, I know. That's why it was perfect to have you on as my first guest to have this kind of shit happen right now, because this is exactly, you're the perfect guest for this.
It's tough. Like, I mean, Nomad was saying, like, what the hell? Nomad, I'm not trying to be the doom and gloom, man. I mean that. It's just, if anybody knows me, Dan, you know me. I don't know if I put this out there. I was more excited for the Teven Jenkins pick than the Justin Fields pick when it happened. And I know that's crazy. Listen, I love Justin Fields. Nothing against the guy. I'm a line guru. I like offensive and defensive line play.
Mhm.
And Teven Jenkins is my breed of football player. It's the guy I like to watch. I like offensive linemen that smash people. And I mean, the reality there is that you're looking at a guy that's hurt today. Like when the news came through, Dad, it was like somebody literally. I'm at Rams camp, and
Trust me, I know.
I was at Rams camp, and I told Diana, my wife, I was like, let's just get out of here. I just feel like I had a gut punch. I don't want to be here anymore. This sucks. That's how much this bothers me.
That's why it's even more to have you as a perfect guest for this, because your background in offensive line plus your love for Teven Jenkins. I mean, some of the things that have kind of bothered me about this, where we're all left speculating to why he's not been in practice, right?
Yep.
So it's not been disclosed as an injury, it hasn't been disclosed as anything. So sadly, kind of where my thought goes on this is I remembered his first press conference of the year. I think it was his only one that he had with the Bears in the beginning of I think it was might have even been OTAs.
Yeah.
And where he was talking about, getting his body fat percentage down and losing weight and doing Pilates and getting his core. And then the other thing that he mentioned was he has to cut down on beer.
Yep.
So now we move forward into where we are now, and it kind of makes me wonder if, I don't know, I'm just speculating. This is just hearsay. This is not even hearsay. This is just my own brain thinking right now. Is it possible he decided, well, I can drink vodka because that's good for you when you're on this kind of a diet, right? And then maybe he's drinking too much. Maybe he's coming into the facilities hungover, and nobody, they're not going to tell any that. They're not going to disclose that. That's awfully personal. Maybe he's coming into the facilities hungover in the morning. Maybe he smells in the morning. I don't know. I mean, these are just. I'm trying to figure out what the hell happened in this time frame that could have caused him to. Was it the decline? Did this happen all the way back from? Let's just say it is related to what I'm saying, and it happened all the way back in OTAs, and they were like, "Listen, you got to get this taken care of." Then they come back and they realize, "Oh yeah, he looks good. He's lost all this weight, but maybe he's coming in a little hungover because he switched to the liquor, because maybe he has an alcohol problem. For all we know, they could be putting him into an AA, thing, and they're keeping it hush hush to try to get his mental health healed, so that when he comes back, he'll be good to go. And maybe they're trying to do that as a team for him. I don't know. And then maybe there's speculation about that throughout the league, and then teams are coming. They're wondering why he's not on the field. Maybe they don't know that. They don't know this. I'm just saying if this is the situation, and then hence the trade talks begin. I'm not gonna sit here and say that that's what's happening. I'm just trying to figure out what in the hell could possibly be happening, because that's the only thing I can come up with based on the talent level that he is. It seems to me like he loves football. Doesn't it seem like he loves football to you, Jordan? I mean,
and that's the hard thing, because I don't mind going into speculation about what it could be. I just want to make sure we're very clear that we don't have any inside information. We're simply positing potential things that could have been barriers for him. But on the surface level, I'm going to just try to talk about some of the facts that we do know, which is that, you're just kind of trying to draw string theory, if you will, from actions that we've seen that have been allowed to where we are now. And for example, there was some concern about, is he not healthy? I find it hard to believe. Listen, you've got Jimmy Morgan there and a few others at strength and conditioning. We've got you in the bod pod, want to make sure your body weight and body fat percentage is correct. I tend to believe that there's this situation where you wouldn't let that guy participate in the home run derby, and you wouldn't be putting him up on the podium and letting him talk to everybody if you didn't think he was going to be in the plans.
Mm-hmm.
And then somewhere along the line, there became a situation where, and listen, I was the first one, because I'm biased towards Teven, I was the first one to sit there and say, look, give them the benefit of the doubt. They're putting him in second string because they are really just trying to find the best five. But I would really target that as kind of the beginning of the downfall, the end, if you will, from then to where we are now.
Yeah.
You had a situation where, let's just even go back just a little bit. The whole argument, and Greg Gabriel was talking about this today on his show, but Ifedi was the guy that pushed Teven Jenkins when Teven went to Justin Fields' defense in the Minnesota game. Ifedi's not here.
Mm-hmm.
Teven Jenkins is. I understand Teven Jenkins as a rookie contract high pick. Naturally, didn't have to make a contract decision with him.
Right.
But the reality is there was an option to keep Ifedi, and you kept Jenkins. And back when Poles was hired, there was a discussion from Adam Johns and a few of the others at the Athletic, Adam Hogue, that was talking about one of the things that Poles really liked was the guy that came to Justin Fields' defense and felt like there needed to be more of that.
Right.
So I would have imagined that at some point they got off on the right foot.
Me too.
And you're putting him out there in the press conference, and he's talking about, look, yeah, I got to get my weight down. I've been drinking a little too much beer, but I'll get it right. I'm working on the Pilates. Maybe that didn't brush them the right way, but look, here's the reality. If Teven Jenkins, if that press conference bothered them, then I would have real concerns about Poles and staff, because you've got bigger issues with Pringle doing donuts and getting arrested in the back of cop cars and everything else to let one press conference ruin your opinion of Teven Jenkins. So somewhere along the line, and this is what Nomad, I think, has a really astute point. The only thing, if we're looking at it, I think we're just trying to deduce where we can pick up things. If we can say that it's not reasonable for Poles to get upset over a press conference, and it seemed like he was pro Jenkins when he took the job,
mm-hmm.
and then there's a moment where he gets put in second string under the guise of we're just trying players out, but then you go the whole period before training camp and he comes back at second string.
Mm-hmm.
The only reasonable, logical position in there is the position coach with Chris Morgan about what was the situation there. And that's the part that we don't know. Could it be that Jenkins, as you said, may have alcohol pumps? Who knows? Maybe. Maybe he said, look, I'm a second round pick and you guys are over here drafting 4 or 5 offensive linemen like I'm not here and this isn't my job.
Yeah.
Maybe he's showing up to camp late. Maybe he's not taking his workouts as seriously. Maybe he's screwing off. We're never going to get to see that. But
right.
This is something that, Nomad's talking about it here. If Chris Morgan's worth his salt, that's the type of stuff you can resolve. And that's the issue I have is we will never likely know what happened with Teven Jenkins if he is indeed shipped out.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to say, we all know this. He's the most talented offensive lineman you have in a position that you clearly have identified as a position of need, with signing Riley Reeve, Michael Schofield, drafting a bunch of offensive linemen in day 2. And this is your most talented guy and you're going to ship him off. I have real concerns. And Mule's saying maybe the agent probably requested a trade. Who knows? But I have real concerns if you as a coaching staff and a regime can't find a way to poke, prod, and coax the best out of your players. Listen, players can sometimes be a real pain in the ass. I'm sure of it. But Guess what? We're all managers at one point in our life. You always have tough employees you have to deal with. Sure, sometimes they make it so tough it's better to just say, hey, you go find a new job. I get it. But most of the time, you typically, on the request of HR or otherwise, have to find a way to make it work with that disgruntled employee. Mm-hmm. And if you're a manager, or as Nomad says, a coach worth your salt, then I expect you to be able to smooth out and iron any issues you have with Teven Jenkins and put him in a position to succeed. And right now, it seems like none of that has been done. And that's really why I'm so frustrated and upset with not just this situation, but in large part, a lot of the process and what we've seen in the early start of this regime under Ryan Poles.
Yeah. One of the things you kind of made a good point about was when he left OTAs as a second stringer. Well, then what happened? They brought in Riley Reeve right before training camp started. So they obviously fell out of favor with him, right? Obviously the talent's there, right? My first assumption was bringing in Reef was for backup, right? Like, because if something doesn't work out with we have 2 bookend tackles that we think are going to be good, but we truly don't really know that much about. So the fact that they brought in Riley Reef kind of made me think, okay, well, this is just a backup plan in case Borum doesn't work at left tackle, or I wasn't even honestly thinking Teven Jenkins. Teven Jenkins has been in the starting lineup in my head the whole time. But maybe bringing in Reef had a lot to do with Jenkins, or I should say more to do with Jenkins than it did to do with any other tackle position,
It's tough because to me, like I said, and I want to be very clear. I have no connections to the organization. I wish I did. I don't have any inside information. If you're going to hear anything from me, I want to be very clear and on the record that I am much more biased to protect or have the interest of the player in this situation. I really liked Teven Jenkins as a prospect. Mm-hmm. I appreciated his pick at the value of the pick more than even the Justin Fields. So anything I say is probably going to be leaning in favor of him.
Absolutely.
And that's my issue, though, is I can't sit here and say, listen, we can understand. He may have problems behind the scenes. maybe he's so disgruntled and frustrated that I deserve the starting chance because I was a second rounder and he hasn't worked for it. All of that could be true.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is that I just can't sit there and look at from the outside and not apply some blame to the front office, to the coaching staff to figure this out. And this is just, I don't know, there's been a lot of, this is one issue, but there's been other problems, whether it be Roquan, who still is waiting to get paid, Brisker leading up to the 11th hour. And I get it. No harm, no foul. He got in on time, but trying to get Ogunjobi, then Ogunjobi fails out of the medical, and you're trying to bring competitive players in that have some off the field issues, nothing too big, but you were trying to get in on Brian Allen as your center and then failed out there and had to get Lucas Patrick. It's been nothing but a cloud of kind of, I don't want to say negativity, but just turbulence is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
The entire, and this is what, it's not anything even against Ryan Poles, but you never want that for any regime. And the entire regime from start to finish of what we've seen from start to the current time with Ryan Poles has been turbulence almost throughout the entire way. And yes, keep the faith, bear down. I'm with all that, but it's hard to, when you're sitting there telling me that it's a better decision to hold trade talks for your second round pick that you have as a position of need, that you're literally waiting until the 11th hour to sign a Riley Reef and hope that he's the savior, then finding a way to make it work with one of the most talented players in the league. And I'll end with this before I give you the mic back, is it's the general topic of the N'Keal Harry thing just sticks out in my head. We'll see what N'Keal Harry turns out to be. But the reason why, and you heard me when it first happened, I wasn't in love with the idea of giving a 7th round pick in the future for a guy that likely would have been cut. But the thing is, without a doubt, who knows? It didn't work out in New England for whatever reason. But when he was drafted, it was a lauded and applauded pick. Mm-hmm. Because in many, and I pick your favorite draft, Nick. I'm anybody you want. We can go look up the scouting report, and they'll tell you N'Keal Harry was a first-round talent, good pick by the Patriots. Now, your draft pick doesn't matter once you're in camp. Mm-hmm. It's just a position of where you were taken. Now it's all about proving it. Same applies with Teven. But that's where the issue lies. I'm okay with N'Keal Harry was at one point considered one of the best 35 to 40 talents in a draft class. The same exact thing applied to Teven Jenkins. And so for you to just decide, for whatever reason of acrimony may exist, that this guy doesn't fit, I just can't jive with that. It doesn't work for me.
Me either, because, I mean, he's only going into his second year of what, a 4-year contract?
Yeah.
You would think they would at least try to get through this year and try to help him with whatever issues he might be having that are causing these, if it's not a physical, if it's a mental issue of any sort or an immaturity issue, which would be a mental issue, you would think they would just be trying to do whatever they could to protect their investment and help that player out as much as they could, put all of their resources into it to keep this guy on the team, to make sure that he matures under your roster and on your salary cap, and you can continue to develop this kid into what so many of us believe that he truly can be. I mean, he is nasty. He fits the nasty mold. Back to what we were talking, you were talking about with Poles coming in. That was the first thing that he described in what he wanted in his offensive lineman is nastiness, and he is the freaking nastiest offensive lineman we have.
I mean,
except for Patrick.
You want glass eaters. Like that's a common term. I wish I could coin that. That's not mine, but you can find that term in many places. The idea of a glass eater, like a dog that eats glass at its food. I mean, that's where it comes from, the idea behind pit bulls. Right. That's what you really want in your offensive line.
Right.
And the reason I was okay with Lucas Patrick and I had joined the ship shortly after he was signed is you can watch the Green Bay tape and watch him taking everybody's lunch and just ultimately planting them into the ground. Mm-hmm. Teven Jenkins didn't get that opportunity with the Bears in his first year because of the back injury, because you're not doing padded practices that late into the season. But the reason you selected a guy and he was held in that high of regard, and go through your draft history, go through Twitter history and see how many people are like, how did this Teven Jenkins guy fall out of the first round? He was held in such high regard because that's the type of player he was at Oklahoma State.
Mm-hmm.
And he had guard versatility. People said he'd be better as a guard. And he doesn't even find a way into your starting 5 at guard. You'd rather roll out Sam Mustipher and then sign Michael Schofield. this is the process. And I know you didn't bring me on here to talk about this, so I will let you steer the ship. But this is a real issue I have, and I'm trying to keep the faith. But process has been questionable the entire time. And for anybody that may be listening to this now or later, process is different than results. You will never hear me critique results because we don't have any yet.
Right.
Maybe I could be concerned about the process and the Bears come out and they're playoff ready and they're the most competitive, scrappy team you've seen and they go to the wild card and go into the divisional championship and lose there. Fine. Then I will eat all the crow. But I certainly am not going to apologize for having real legitimate questions about the process from start to finish on Teven Jenkins, on your interest in Larry Ogunjobi, to decide to take two defensive backs, to take Velus Jones at 70 and not trade back and see if you could get a guy like him later. It just goes on. And there's a real concern here when your process has so many questions. Are we headed in the right direction? The thing that we've always heard, and maybe it was Adam Johns or somebody that it was at the time of the Soup Campbell firing. There was a belief that we are heading in a particular direction. If you're not going in that same direction, get the hell out of the building.
Right.
And I can respect that.
Right.
At a certain point, how do we know that you're headed in the right direction?
Exactly.
There's so many people, Dan, that want to talk about let's just trade them and get draft picks. Ask the Miami Dolphins how that went. They were so excited to trade away Mika Fitzpatrick for a first-round pick, and we're going to trade away this guy and that guy, and we're going to all of a sudden have 3 first-round picks to select Tua Tagovailoa and Noah Igbenogany and Austin Jackson, and it's done what for them? Draft picks, at a certain point, you have to stick and pick, and you have to hit on the guys. And a guy like Teven Jenkins is not one you just move off of.
Right. I think there's at some point you have to realize the picks that what you have invested into these guys, and you may not have invested it in them yourself as the previous regime did, but for what we all are able to view with our own eyes, what this kid could be, it's just, I don't know, man. It's just weird. It's just weird how all of this has just transpired. It's kind of sickening to me. And to your point of, does it make you feel like we're still going down the right road when maybe we did feel like we were? Like, what's going to happen when let's just say they do trade him for what? Give me your best answer again. A fifth, a fourth? Let's just say a fourth, right?
Yeah.
What's that going to do for our offensive tackle position on the team as it stands?
Are you getting somebody as talented as him in the 4th round?
Right. So why wouldn't you just want to try to fix the kid? If there's something, if he needs help, give him help, Well,
because is that not why you're paid? Is that not why you hold the position of a coach or a GM, or, you have this player engagement person in Soup Campbell and you decide we don't want that. We need somebody who's more mental health focused. Fine. But and I think that they do have somebody in that position currently, but figure out a way to have all hands on deck to protect your investments. And that's the reality, is that you're going to hear me taking the side of defense for Teven Jenkins, but I don't think that the kid all of a sudden decided, screw this, I'm not going to try hard, I'm out of it. It just doesn't. How would that be the case?
Do you think the Soup Campbell thing has anything to do with this?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm never going to sit here. Yeah, for sure, it was the Soup Campbell.
Well, I know, but is it possible? I'm saying, did Soup Campbell not handle this correctly in the situation correctly enough after the OTAs, so we wanted to replace him with somebody else?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's certainly not outside of the possibility that, this is well known documented on record, that Soup Campbell had a lot of valuable relationships with the players on that team. David Montgomery to other players, I'm sure, was literally, and reporters have talked about this, that he was on the same floor entering Hallis Hall as they would be passing by his office and see players in there. And so all of a sudden, you would imagine that guy probably has some invested interest in every new draft. You've heard this from rookies that we're talking about. I think Kari Blossomgame was the one that was actually talking about it, that when he came to Chicago, Soup was the one that got him set up in his rental initially, and then looked for further housing in Chicago, made sure they got them all comfortable, family was situated. If that's a guy that's kind of your entry point into the Bears, it's fair to assume that guy's there for your rookie class coming in as well. And he's probably the conduit, if you will, or at least some point or part of that conduit, that when Teven comes in, needs back surgery, is trying to heal up, trying to get right, understand the plays, understand his position on the team, you would imagine that Soup Campbell had some dealing with that. And I'm sure it doesn't – I'm not saying it set Teven off, but I'm sure you don't love it when the people that you've come to become comfortable with are all of a sudden out.
Yeah. For all we know, Soup Campbell was going out and having drinks with him, and not knowing that he had a problem, and they were like, "We're trying to fix this, man."
Yeah.
Are you Are you hearing that those pings come up on my?
No, I'm not hearing
Okay.
it. You're good.
I'm getting like notifications on my computer, and I can hear them in my headset, and I keep thinking everyone's okay. Good.
And if I could,
threw me off a little bit.
If I could, Nomad saying like I was unnecessarily taking shots. Nomad, we don't always have to agree. Everybody's allowed to see the game in a different way. I apologize if you think I like all of a sudden have some axe to pick or anything with Ryan Poles. It's not that. And like I said, we don't always have to agree. I just think that for me, I have a real belief in a situation that it's okay to question things. We don't always have to assign blind faith. We're fans. I don't have any control over the Chicago Bears. It's kind of ridiculous. I get so upset hearing a guy would be traded like Teven Jenkins, and it ruins my day from having a good time at Rams camp. That's just who I am. That's how invested I am, just as much as you are, Nomad, and everybody else that's tuning in here.
Mm-hmm.
You can have blind faith. You can totally love the Bears. I'm not eschewing that. Do it. I'm not going to besmirch you for it. But at the same time, if I'm going to respect that, I just ask that you respect that. I don't have to sit here and just prescribe to everything is perfect for the Chicago Bears, and they absolutely hired the right guy, and he's doing everything perfect. I'm not saying he's a bad GM, a bad person, just that I'm simply questioning the process so far, because I think it's fair, not just to Nomad, but anybody in the chat, you, Dan, as well. I think it's fair to say that from the start of Ryan Poles' tenure as the Chicago Bears GM to where we are today, it has been anything but smooth.
Yeah. Other than the turning 5 picks into 11, that was pretty smooth to me. But he has had some rocky, times with some of the draft issues, or not the draft issues, but the signing of Ogunjobi and losing out on the Bills' offensive lineman, Ryan Bates, things like that. So I don't know. It's just, I guess we're just gonna have to stay tuned and see what happens. Hopefully, this is all just a smoke screen. It's just reporting because teams are realizing, like, why isn't he on the field? Let's look into this. Maybe see if we can get a trade for him somehow. That's my hope.
Yeah, well, and I mean, J2K was saying like it's probably the worst time to trade Teven right now because his value is so low. That's tough. I mean, I don't even know if there's a good time for it, because let's just say you wait 2 weeks. If indeed you're trying to trade him, you're probably not practicing him in the interest of making sure he doesn't get hurt. And as time continues to progress along, if I'm a team, I'm questioning, I don't even know what I'm getting with this guy. I don't know what shape he's in. You're not practicing him. I'm hoping that he passes a physical. We're getting closer to the season. Even if he is ready, I don't know how much time I'm going to have to coach him up. Mm-hmm. I would question and think that would drive the price down. You may be interested in taking what's out there now, but I also think you've got to decide what the right value is, and that's what's tough. Is Ryan Poles has no connection to Justin Fields, Darnell Mooney, Teven Jenkins, not in a bad way, just that I didn't draft these guys.
Right.
So at the end of the day, he has his own value of what he thinks a player's worth.
Yeah, I'm sure they were looking at Teven Jenkins in the previous draft on his board in Kansas City, so here he knows what he thinks of him.
Yep. I mean, they drafted an offensive lineman in the second round, Creed Humphrey. I mean, Teven Jenkins is already gone, but the reality is they had already filled their tackle spots and guard spots. Right. Joe Tooney and Orlando Brown, and they had Lucas Niang coming back.
Yeah, they just made the trade for Orlando Brown. So yeah. All right. Well, I think that's. I really don't think that. I mean, that's kind of all we can talk about with this. It's just like we'll just kind of cross our fingers and hope that they're going to hang on to him and try to keep investing in him. And
I mean, I'm not telling anybody things that they don't know, but the reality is here, it's definitely going to go one of two ways. So buckle up and let's ride one way or the other.
Yeah, let's prepare for the worst, because he might be gone in a couple of days.
Yeah, I anticipate that it's going to go one of two ways. He's either going to be moved rather swiftly, and you're going to find out what that value is rather quick, or, and this is what I'm ultimately hoping for, somewhere along the line. I mean, we saw this with Deebo Samuel recently and other players before, that have wanted to be traded or wanted out, wanted extensions. I mean, I'll give you 2 examples. The Deebo Samuel one just got worked out. He got the contract extension despite draft trade rumors from the Jets and everybody else that wanted to acquire him. Then you had the Minkah Fitzpatrick thing where he didn't get along with the way that Brian Flores wanted to use him, and he ended up getting shipped off to Pittsburgh. It goes both ways, but I think you're either going to see him moved rather quickly, but what I'm hoping is that they find a way to say, hey, how about a fresh start? Can we just start on even ground? Let's just try this. But it may be too far along for that, and we don't know. We're going to have to just wait and see.
Yep, and cross our fingers and hope for the best. I wanted to ask you about a little thing we were talking about on Twitter today involving something that you posted about Leonard Floyd.
Yes.
And you said
he looks phenomenal out there.
Yeah, you posted an image of him and then said something. I can't find it right now. But
one time in Chicago, what it could have been.
Exactly. And I said something along the lines of, he was playing outside linebacker on the opposite side of Khalil Mack and couldn't do anything. You would have thought that would have made him flourish. And then he goes to the Rams where an interior defensive lineman is the one making him flourish. So what did you respectfully disagree on with that?
I think it's very easy to say that Aaron Donald all of a sudden makes everybody flourish. I think that there's some truth to that. I also think we can pull up many plays where Aaron Donald is getting triple teamed and isn't making plays, and that would be you saying that therefore Leonard Floyd all of a sudden gets a free pass to the quarterback. Doesn't always work that way, but really it was more about a philosophical belief that and listen, everybody's going to say, well, Leonard Floyd's a bum. He should have been kicked off. And I mean, people forget that when he signed a 1-year prove-it deal in LA and had like 8 sacks and then immediately went on. They thought he was valuable enough to give him a mega deal. The thing with Leonard Floyd, and this is my belief, doesn't mean I'm right, doesn't mean that everybody else has to agree. I think we traded up to get him, which is also another Ryan Pace. Trade up for everybody. So Leonard Floyd was picked, I think, number 9 overall, outside linebacker out of Georgia. Very kind of gangly, if you will, like kind of just
very thin in the hips, a skinny ass. He seemed more like a wide receiver to me coming out of college.
So it is a very weird build. I'm not denying that. But if you watch the Fangio defense, you're running a 3-4 and odd front, which is predominantly, by the time that everybody lines up, you basically are running a 5-0 front. Because you have your outside linebackers up on the line looking like they're rushing. They're not always rushing. You may drop some out. Then you have your 5 techs, which are out there on the tackles. Then you have your 2 inside linebackers that are over the guards. And then you have your nose tackle that's over the center. That's your 5-0 front. The whole idea, and this is why, I mean, it's a great game to just go back and watch for schematics. If you want to go back and watch the Rams get destroyed in Chicago, this is literally why they took Brandon Staley the next year. Because they saw, holy crap, this is what this front does. Everybody thought that Leonard Floyd at number 9, when you're taking an outside linebacker, an edge at number 9, it means that he needs to be Khalil Mack or Joey Bosa, or he needs to be a guy that has 15 sacks. And I even think that belief infiltrated into the Bears, which is when they decided, let's let him go and let's go sign Robert Quinn to a mega deal because we need the Robin to Khalil Mack's Batman to rush the passer. And you're not wrong there. It's great to have 2 rushers. But my argument is that in Fangio's scheme, what the actual most important role of those outside linebackers is to set the edge, contain the run, make sure nothing gets outside. As we all know in football, the dangerous plays all happen out the boundary. So if we can contain the run, set the edge, keep everything in front of us, we'll wad up the middle and allow our 5 techs and Eddie Goldman and Roquan Smith and Danny Trevathan to clog up and wad up the middle and stop plays. And then after that, if it's a passing down, sure, get busy, get to the quarterback, cause disruption. The thing
that's what I would have. Go ahead. I'll let you finish.
Okay, I'll be real quick. The thing with Leonard Floyd is that everybody thought he'd be some 15-sack guy. That wasn't his game. If you actually watch Leonard Floyd, the guy set the edge like no other. His run defense was incredible, and that's what's amazing for his skinny mold.
Yeah.
He actually did a great job there. And the moment that you saw that come out, I get it. We're all looking for that Robin to really compete, and you have 2 great pass rushers off the edge. But Khalil Mack was a great edge setter in his own right. That's what they're gonna. That's why they need him in LA. They got gashed in the run game all last year. They want that outside linebacker that can set the edge.
Mm-hmm.
You lost that a lot when you decided to let him walk and add in Robert Quinn. And I know Robert Quinn wasn't healthy that first year, but that's really the issue. And I think that Leonard Floyd doesn't get enough respect for the role that he plays in modern defenses.
See, my thinking at the time was, and you make a good point, which kind of proved me wrong, but my thinking at the time was that Khalil Mack getting the double team should have freed up Leonard Floyd on the other side to get the sacks and the passing downs. And I wasn't expecting 15 sacks, but I don't think he really ever got more than 7 under the Mack.
Yeah, his
regime.
his rookie year was his best year.
Yeah. So that's when I just said I was expecting more out of him, considering he was playing. I would have thought that Khalil Mack would have just helped him out a little bit more to get a little more sacks. You mentioned you're correct. He did play the run pretty well, but I guess my hope was just that it would have been like a 1-2 punch, kind of like we had going last year with Quinn. But to what you were saying, it's a different player, so. I mean, it's just sucks to see him go to the Rams and do better. That's all.
I mean, you would have
we freaking traded up for him, and then we let him walk, and now he's doing better with the Rams.
Yeah, do you want to talk? I mean, it's funny. It's all a vicious circle because you want to talk about spending a day behind enemy lines. I'm watching Allen Robinson go out and be electric out there for the Rams, and so it looks like it's just. I mean, Diana, my wife, is sitting there joking, like, do they all just send all the great players from Chicago and their dysfunction to the Rams? Because that's what it felt like, and. You're sitting there, and this is where we're talking about Teven Jenkins. That's a big part of it. We really want to sit there and watch him flourish in another organization because it could happen. I mean, that's literally the Leonard Floyd thing. Leonard Floyd left Chicago and flourished under LA.
It could be the Rams trying to make a trade for him. Shit, that's what they would do.
I'll tell you what, they actually need a tackle. Whitworth just retired, and they're extending Joe Noteboom to be that guy. But if Noteboom isn't that guy, they have a tackle problem.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like I said, I don't want to get too much into Rams camp. I know fans here, but at least for your Chicago Bears report, Leonard Floyd looks great, and then I mean he was disruptive. Bobby Wagner had an awesome day; it was freaking phenomenal. But and that's not Bears. Allen Robinson. Listen, I was not happy with Allen Robinson last year. I think he mailed it in. I think it's another layered conversation that we don't have to have today, but. I would warn anybody naysaying Allen Robinson to be careful what you say because Allen Robinson is looking like another Cooper Kupp out there. They had him on end arounds. They had him running deep posts. He was a freaking nightmare for that defense today. We've always seen Cooper Kupp being the guy that's motioning back and forth and he's sift blocking. And it looked like they had two Cooper Kupps out there, one wearing 10, one wearing a 1. It was a nightmare.
Oh, so Allen Robinson's wearing 1?
Yes, he's wearing 1.
Good for him. That's somebody I'll be watching this year. I'm going to be rooting for him on a good team, just to see what he can do playing in a good system like that. Very similar to like I'm really going to have all eyes on Mitch Trubisky this year too, just to see what he does in the Steelers because. I personally feel like the kid just didn't play enough college and he gets to the NFL and he just needed some time to develop. And yes, there was quite a few passes that he couldn't throw in the first couple of years, which there's going to be a couple of them I'm going to show you tonight that Justin Fields hits a dime on. But those are some of the things that bothered me about him. I should say the only thing was couldn't really tell if he could read a defense very well. And he couldn't throw that outside, like a 20-yard out to the sideline. He always overthrew it. He threw it out of bounds. He threw it 15 yards ahead of the guy. And it was every single time you're watching that pass. So it seemed like he kind of had that pass down when he torched the Bears in the preseason. I know it was only preseason, but he was still able to make that pass that he wasn't able to make before. So him with the Steelers now on a functional team, I'm going to be having all eyes on him just in the background just to see how he's doing because I really root for him as a person. He's a good kid. He tried hard in Chicago. He got stuck with a shitty media. He got stuck with a shitty coach that, kind of what we were talking about earlier with the Teven Jenkins thing, he wasn't Matt Nagy's first choice. Sorry to say that name again, but I'm going to have all eyes out on him as well as Robinson, just because of my Bears love for him, a little bit more for Trubisky because we drafted him and we put that capital into him and he didn't work out for us. But I'm going to be excited to watch both of those players this year as players that aren't on the Bears.
I mean, they're going for it. Their window is clearly open, and I expect big things out of Allen Robinson. And like I said, it's just funny how it's full circle because you're watching – Allen Robinson's a little different. Obviously, he came from Jacksonville, but you're watching these players in Chicago that had promise, was a lot of capital invested in them, and yet it feels like they're going off to flourish elsewhere. Yeah. And obviously, with TBD, we'll need to see Allen Robinson do that before we say that. But without a doubt, Leonard Floyd has proven that way. We'll see with Mitchell Trubisky, but it's tough. I mean, this is it all. Like I said, it all finds a way to circle back to, the Teven Jenkins thing. Yeah, A-Rob is a wide receiver when they did get back. I mean, yeah, you have 2 Cooper Kupps now. So it's freaky, but it all just kind of comes back to that idea of trading away talent that Chicago had, and all of a sudden it just is a reminder of what it could have been if you had better coaching. And like I said, Teven Jenkins, we'll see. Ryan Poles may have better plans in the future, and his guys are going to ultimately pan out and develop in the ways that Nagy's staff and tenure under Ryan Pace never did. But, I mean, that's kind of the idea, too. That's why we harped on it for so long about probably don't want to trade away homegrown talent. And I know I'm talking a little bit out of the side of my mouth here because I was the guy saying maybe we should move on from Roquan, but obviously that's not happening now. So it's important you keep those players that you draft, that you develop in-house, that become your leaders, that you really shined up from start to finish. And right now, that's a big problem with the Bears football is there's just not a lot of those guys. It's Roquan and Eddie Jackson got paid, but then has not lived up to it. So who else do you really have?
I'll be honest, when I saw the breaking news about that the Bears have been contacted about a trade scenario I thought they were about to say Roquan Smith. Oh. As I was reading it, I was like, I'll tell you Teven Jenkins? Oh, what?
I'll tell you what, if there's one guy that's not going to be traded, it's Roquan Smith. So for all those in the chat, you can be happy about that. The thing we've seen time and time again, too much to certain people's dismay. I know J2K was saying I was debating if they should have taken George Pickens and a wide receiver in round 2. The one thing you've seen from start to finish is that it's defense. And whether that's the right direction for the Bears, because we've always been defensive focused or not, the actions speak louder than anything else really. And you've seen that from, who's the linebacker, Nick Morrow, to Brisker, to Kyler Gordon, to the Ogunjobi attempted signing, Al-Qadim Muhammad. It's just a continued effort to say the defense matters. And I think that Flus is probably pounding the table saying, get me my freaking linebacker here. So I don't think he's going anywhere.
Absolutely, and he should be. There's a question, Kitty, can you pull up from Siggy Ball? Siggy Ball has a question. No, not wrong one. Siggy Ball. Jordan, do you follow college football? He's wondering.
I do. I do follow. And this is no, Matt. I promise I'm not trying to bring you in here, but he was saying just tell people you have your own draft board. I do. I study the draft a lot. Therefore, and if you're gonna talk draftees and talk draft prospects, you have to watch a lot of college ball. I do follow college football. I do watch a lot of college football. I don't have a favorite team for a variety of reasons. I like different programs. I like Vanderbilt for some odd reason, like their uniforms. I loved the Gators when it was the Tebow era with all that great talent there. I live in Southern California, so during the Matt Leinart time with USC, it was booming. I'm weirdly interested in Texas at the moment. I think that the Longhorns are due for a big season with some of the quarterback talent that they have, and Bijan Robinson this year, running back coming up. So, I mean, Steve Sigmund's here going go Illinois.
Illinois. He's a Illinois.
I had hopes when Lovey was at the college ranks, and then he totally shit the bed in that respect. But,
yeah, he did.
So, yeah.
What about Will Anderson? Holy cow!
Yeah, I mean, my head's gonna explode. I already feel like my head explodes.
The Terminator. That's what he is. He's the Terminator. That's for sure.
I mean, Will Anderson is the Terminator. He is a freak.
J2K. Sorry, go ahead. I was gonna say J2K makes a great point. How does your head not explode?
I've probably got some brain leaking out the back or something. I don't know, but it's Will Anderson is a freak. He is the real deal. As much as you'll hear me say like, go get a tackle, go get a receiver, go get a quarterback. This is one of those very, very rare years where I don't care if you've got Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud, Tyler Van Dyke, you name it, Will Levis. Will Anderson is the only right answer for number one overall. He's just a monster. It's scary.
So if the Bears somehow did end up with the third pick, I'm not predicting that, but that's what the rest of the NFL world believes they're going to have. They're going to be that shitty that if they had the third pick, it better be Will Anderson. I can't imagine. I would imagine it'll be a quarterback going and a quarterback going, unless there's a quarterback team there, a team that has a quarterback in the first two picks. And if the Bears had a chance to get Will Anderson, that would be just wow.
Well, you've really hit on a good point, Mr. Shorty. Which that's the real issue with a lot of the Bears roster right now is nobody wants to admit this. They're just. I'm not saying that they can't be good. Names that you don't know can always be good. That's half my issue with a lot of the negative takes on the Bears is just because you don't know the name Equanimeous St. Brown or you don't know the name Al-Qadim Muhammad doesn't mean that these players can't play well. Mm-hmm. But the funny thing is that the Bears are void of a lot of true blue chip, amazing talent. Mm-hmm. And if Will Anderson's there, you desperately need it. But I mean, I will tell you the position I'm really hoping, and I think it ends up maybe going this way, depending on how the Bears finish. I'm especially if this Teven Jenkins thing happens, I'm desperately hoping that they end up with Peter Skoronski out of Northwestern, offensive tackle prospect. Certainly needs some work, but if you're looking at Rashawn Slater coming out of Northwestern and his tape, and I mean Duke Manyweather's worked with him from O-line Masterminds, he's a freak, and that's really the guy I would like because I'm going to presume that Will Anderson, if anybody's smart, Will Anderson should go ahead of wherever the Bears are picking, and if Peter Skoronski's there, that's the guy I want.
To me, Will Anderson should be the first pick in the draft.
Yeah,
I mean, unless there's a team there that just absolutely does not have a quarterback. But if they could trade down 2 picks or something like that and still land him, a quarterback. I don't know. I mean, that I watched that guy and it just, boy, he's exciting. He's going to be a superstar in the NFL and it's going to be fun to watch him.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not hopefully because that would mean that they suck. But if you got to the Bears, I wouldn't be disappointed with it.
Well, and we're very close as we have football this week, the Hall of Fame game. We're getting ever closer to seeing what this brand of Bears football looks like and seeing how successful they really turn out to be.
Yeah, it's getting exciting. I'm going home in September. I'm going back to Chicago, and I'm going to try to make some game or make at least one game. So that'll be a lot of fun. I can't wait. I haven't been to a game in a long time. Well, I'm going to be going to a game here in November for the first time in a long time. But I think you mentioned, are you coming down here for that game, the Bears game?
No, I don't have any Bears games planned at the moment. I should find a way to get out to one of those, but at the moment I've been trying to plan. It's a little bit of a stupid reason, but I want to see every NFL stadium. That's kind of a goal of mine, is a good way to travel around. And I've seen Soldier Field. So the ones I was planning on going to is, well, you were asking the Bears game in Atlanta. Yes, that's one. The Atlanta game I'm trying to get to, and then the Dallas Cowboys game. But none in Chicago proper this year is the plan.
Right. How many stadiums have you been to so far?
So we were going to go to Seattle last year and didn't, and I should have. We stopped because of the snow, but that was the one game they won. But it's been Soldier Field, SoFi Stadium, Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, and then Nissan Stadium in Tennessee. Those are the 4.
Sounds about like me. I've been to Soldier Field, never been to Green Bay. I lived close enough to go to one, but I never wanted to go. I've been to Denver. Been to both Atlanta stadiums here, and I think that's about it. I think I'm at like 4 too. So it'd be kind of cool to
see Atlanta. Yeah, I mean, I'm very excited to see that game.
It's a really cool stadium. I mean, there's so many. You don't even really have to sit in your seat. My seats are, I'm not a Falcons fan. I just got the season tickets because at the time the Bears were in the John Fox era, and I just was like, this is not worth watching. And they had just been to the Super Bowl, and the stadium was opening, and the PSLs were $500 a piece. And like I've said to you on the first Bare Necessities I was on with you, in the Atlanta Falcon Stadium, I went and got a beer, a water, a cheeseburger, and a chicken finger basket, and it cost me $13.
And the
And
price of one beer.
that's literally one beer at Soldier Field.
Yeah.
And the food actually isn't bad either. It's actually a lot better than Soldier Field food is, surprisingly. I mean, you would think they'd have better food in Soldier Field in downtown Chicago. I mean, there's so many different opportunities for people to put their businesses in there. It's sad that they didn't even think about it. Well, speaking of Soldier Field, I kind of want to go on a little diatribe about Justin Fields tonight because
Please.
I, you know, I'm going to be honest with you. You know, you've already stated your point that you wanted Jenkins above anybody else, and when they got Fields, you were disappointed because they didn't get Jenkins, but they still ended up getting Jenkins.
Yeah,
which brings you to tonight's disappointment. But I honestly, my entire life, every single year, I've scouted nothing but quarterbacks. It's the first thing I've scouted when draft time comes up. And that year, I never even bothered to scout Justin Fields because I just thought there was no way in hell we're getting a quarterback with the 21st pick. And then my buddy here who was in chat, Siggy Ball, he kept telling me the number 1/number 2 quarterback prospect is in your state, and you got to go see this guy. He's like an hour from you. Like, find out where he's going to school. And I looked it up, and it was like an hour away. And I'm like, I don't want to go drive all the way up there and deal with all that. And then the Bears end up drafting Justin Fields, and that was the first thing my buddy said to me was, "You could have gone to a game." And that was the first thing I did was kick myself in the ass with my own foot, and I still have been ever since, because after we drafted Justin Fields, I just went down a 3-month-long wormhole last year of watching all of his. I don't know how many people even know this. I mean, if you YouTube Justin Fields if you search Justin Fields on YouTube, there's like 3 documentaries or more on him. There's one of him when he was in high school. There's one about him like from going to high school to college, then from like college to the pros, and then like once he got to the pros. So I think there's actually might be 4. And I've watched all of them to exhaustion, plus any other little clip I could find. The camp that he was at, the QB1 camp that he dominated at, he had like a 70-something% touchdown percentage on his drives, and the next highest one was in the 40s, and that was the quarterback that was drafted, the guy in Jacksonville.
Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence. So he like absolutely dominated the QB1 camp, and everyone was wowing about just this kid's accuracy. But my concern was that long windup that he had, and we've talked about that before. I think everyone kind of knows what I'm talking about. He kind of brought the ball back and down and exposed it to fumble territory before he brought it back up to throw. Yeah. And that was the first thing I was talking about after the end of last season. And in fact, when they hired Getsy, I was hoping that, yeah, you're right, Cliff. I do try to, you ever try to just fall asleep and like, you try to like solve a problem for next day's problem. You kind of like try to fall asleep to it, and it kind of comes to you like as you're drifting off into sleep, and then you'll get your answer. I've tried to do that with lottery numbers, and it doesn't work. So, but then Fields progressing as into this year once we got Getsy, and knowing that Getsy had been around so long with Aaron Rodgers and working with him as his QB, and just kind of my hope was that going into training camp with Getsy, that Fields would teach Fields some of the things that I was hoping to see, and that's exactly what I'm seeing. He's got his release is more compact. He's bringing it up here and getting rid of it. He's getting rid of it. He's slowed down the timing. His throw timing is drastically reduced. So I think that's going to really help him moving forward. And you're starting to see this in training camp. All the clips that everyone's pulling up, all the video clips from people being at training camp, you can see that throwing motion has been shortened, and it's much more compact and it's quicker. The ball is coming out of his hand beautifully. And so I know we're kind of talking about last year, but since everyone has been so shitting on the Bears and shitting on Justin Fields and all the reports, ESPN or Sports Illustrated, whatever the two, they thought that he was going to throw the most interceptions this year. They were going to have the worst record. I mean, first off, when's the last time the Bears had the first pick in the draft? Do you know?
I don't. The highest one was Mitch Trubisky, and I wouldn't even be able to tell you when we had number
It's like
one.
1946.
Okay, yeah. It was.
So I
you
can guarantee
haven't been able to take a QB early because you haven't been bad enough, and
right.
The only time you were was the Mitch Trubisky. That's the best way.
Actually, no. There was one other time. It was the Terry Bradshaw. There was a coin flip for the first pick for Terry Bradshaw, and they lost that. So. But not that he would have succeeded on the Bears at that time.
The Bears have been like snake bit the luck.
Yeah.
Sweepstakes.
I think that was more of a Steelers. He was more of a product of the Steelers, to be honest. I don't
Sure.
think he would have succeeded with the Bears. But to that point, they have only had the first pick twice. One was 1946, and the one before that was so long ago it's not even what we're talking about. So they're not going to be that bad. They've upgraded their offensive system. They have upgraded their teaching with Getsy. I mean, you watch Getsy, you watch him speak. You can tell the guy knows what he's talking about. You really get just reading him, you can tell that he is a good coach, and you're starting to see the results on the field in training camp. And just to kind of like put to bed all of the people who think that Justin Fields is going to throw the most interceptions or be the shittiest quarterback in the league this year and the Bears are going to have the worst record. I just want to remind some people about some of the plays that we saw last year with our own eyes that people might forget. And I'm talking about the mainstream media because I know people in here didn't forget them. But I thought we could just pull up some clips and just kind of talk about the things that we see in Justin Fields that if you don't see what I'm seeing and if you don't see superstar in this, then I honestly don't know what you're looking at. Yeah, he didn't have the best season as a rookie. I mean, sure, there's been some rookies that come on and blow up the season in their rookie year, but we're also talking about a shitty regime that put him in the wrong situations at the wrong times, and they were completely dysfunctional. If we would have put him on any one of the other, put Justin Fields on the Patriots. Let's talk about what happens. Put Justin Fields on even San Francisco, and let's see what talks about. See what's happening. And I don't think he would have succeeded in Jacksonville because I honestly had no faith in Trevor Lawrence succeeding. With the head coach. I mean, that he was Urban Meyer was. I felt that was going to be a train wreck before it even started, and boy, was it ever. But I think that, when looking at the team where he got drafted, I think that just the position that he was in didn't allow him to succeed. But what I do want to talk about right now and show some clips of is when he did succeed. And these are the moments that we need to be looking at and realizing this is the talent that we have at quarterback. And if they can unlock this and progress with this talent, that's why I have the Bears at 11-6 this year. It's all because of Justin Fields. And I could be wrong. I've told people on Twitter, I will eat my words. I will come on here and I will make fun of myself. I will talk shit about myself for a full hour if they don't go 11-6. I'm not afraid to bash my own self. So with that, let's just take a look at some of Justin Fields' highlights from last year. We'll kind of play one and then talk about it.
Sure.
Play one, talk about it, and then let's do it. Let's go that way, Kitty. Let's roll the first one. I mean, this is the pass against the Niners. This is just a nice out pattern. That's a typical pattern that you wouldn't see Trubisky throw. He would have thrown that ball out of bounds 10 yards. Play it one more time. This is the Trubisky pass that he couldn't throw. I mean, maybe that one he could have thrown, but another 10 yards deeper, that ball is sailing over his head. So let's pull up the next one. So these clips are against the Niners. Again, that's just it's not a great pass, but he as a rookie, this is the first game that he started. So he drops back, gets the ball out of his hands quick. It's a first down. So let's roll the next one. They're kind of quick, so we can kind of go through them.
Yep.
I mean, look at this. Look at this.
That's beautiful as he's fading away.
That's not something that, I mean, even Trubisky didn't do that as a rookie. There's not many rookies we've ever seen as a Bear that's ever done that. Let's play that one more time. I mean, look at this. He just right over the perfect placement and right in his hands, right over the defender, rolling to his left. I mean, those are the kinds of things that you want to see from a quarterback that you hope is going to be a superstar. Let's show the next one, Kitty. So this one here, he's again a nice slant. He drops back. He gets the ball out of his hands quick. He's got pressure coming at him. He gets the ball out right between the two defenders. Perfectly thrown ball. These are the things I'm trying to remind people about of why I'm so excited that the reason they're going to be 11-6 this year is because if he can pick up on the talent that he has throwing these passes with a functional coaching staff, it's going to make him sky's the limit for me, or for him, I say. Let's show another one. So we all remember this one. This one is just one of the sweet. This is an Aaron Rodgers pass right here, Jordan. I mean, look how he's rolling to his left. And when you see on the replay how after he throws the pass, I'm sure you've seen this a million times. After he throws the pass, he's kind of like falling back. He's running kind of backwards. And the arm angle that he used here to flick that ball off of his wrist and get that into the look at that. Yeah. And then right into the perfect position for Jesse James to catch it. And then when you see the final angle here from the end zone view, just to see the ball placement, I mean, the arm angle on that and the ball placement on that, I mean, come on.
It's sweet.
That's superstar in the making to me. We got a few more. Let's just keep rolling. We can keep talking about them as we go. And feel free to interject if you think I'm wrong somewhere. This is obviously, yeah, we all know this one. I almost wasn't even going to pull this one up because we all know about this one. But, I mean, that was just sick. That was like some Madden stuff right there. Actually, you can't even do that well in Madden.
Well, I mean, this is what we're talking about, too. And this is where, I mean, I'm not taking any shots at any specific teams. I won't name them. But, I mean, the thing that you want to remember when you're talking about quarterbacks is that do you have a guy that looks without a doubt like he is the best athlete on the field? And that to me is like the shining example of Justin Fields as a rookie. And mind you, the 49ers are no slouches. They have Fred Warner. They have Eric Armstead. They have plenty of good players. Richard Sherman, not Richard Sherman. Josh Norman was there. Great players in the NFL. And without Justin Fields was the best player on the field on that specific play.
Absolutely, man. And we're going to see that he was on a couple other plays here too. Go ahead and roll the next one, Kitty. So the Steelers. I mean, this Steelers game was the highlight game of his young career. He should have won that. They should have won this game. If it wasn't for that stupid penalty at the end of the game, the personal foul that gave him the ball back, the Bears would have won that game. The Steelers game there's so many good ones in there. Let's keep going with the Steelers ones. I mean, look at this. Look at this pass.
Yeah, this 989.
It's a little behind him, but it's a better catch than it's a better pass. It's a better catch than it was a pass, but still, he found the right guy, got the ball deep to him. It was a completion. If you can hear my dog whining, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Let's move to the next one. This one here. Oh, I think we all talked about this as the season went on. That was, at the time, everyone was talking about this beautiful pass right down the seam, right over the defenders' heads, right into the arms of Jimmy Graham. That was a perfect pass.
That's his best pass of the year, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then and then just previously, and Kitty, you don't have to pull it up, but it was the 7 route to Goodwin. I don't, for those that, and maybe we can find
It
anybody
was the
that's,
previous one.
you can find the all 22 at some point, or I can pull it up in Bare Necessities in a later date. But if you're actually looking at that route and that concept pattern, that is such a hard throw to make, because what you're actually doing is you're running 2 7 routes, 2 corners off the edge there. And the whole idea is we have the alert. Goodwin's the alert on that, the deep 7 that, unless you're Justin Herbert or, super arm, you can throw that. Traditionally, you have kind of, it's a sale concept. You have the lower route there, which is Mooney. And he decides to just go, no, screw that. Look at my arm. I go touchdown to check down. So I'm going to take the home run hit and delivers just a strike. I mean, you're looking at that like, oh, it's just a corner route. No, but it's from the opposite hash, has to travel over. It's
right. That ball's traveling a distance in the air, and you have to have a good arm and good accuracy to get it there. And I think he underthrew it, but I don't think he underthrew it because his arm isn't strong enough.
Correct.
It was just a misjudgment on the speed of Goodwin, I think. So let's go to the one that was after the next one, Kitty. This one right here.
Yeah.
That's the pass that Trubisky can't hit. 9 times out of 10, that is going over the ball, over the receiver, out of bounds at the 22-yard line. If Trubisky's throwing that ball, that's like a Jim McMahon pass right there.
Yeah,
he drops back, he's standing in the pocket, delivers the ball down the right sideline. Beautiful. That was the play that Robinson got hurt on, and then missing several games after that, which sucked because it seemed like they were starting to build some chemistry there.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and roll the next one, Kitty. Oh, this one. When he tucks the ball in.
Yep.
See this? Oh, that's up there at his top 3 passes of the season right there. I love how he tucks the ball here. He's rolling to his left. He just flicks it. See, I'm a big component of the wrist strength of a quarterback. When you watch Aaron Rodgers when he first came out from college, he held the ball really high, kind of up to his chin, and now he holds the ball lower to his waist. And now when you watch Aaron Rodgers throw, he's using his wrist as much as he is using his arm. So it's putting the touch on the ball that he needs. And what you're seeing there in that rollout to his left is the flick of the wrist that he has there, that it was just perfect. And those are the things that I look for when I'm judging my quarterbacks. And so when I'm looking at him and I'm hearing everyone say that he's garbage and he's basically a bust going into this season, it just breaks my heart because I don't know what anyone's talking about.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I love about that touchdown throw to Mooney too is that so often, and I think it's a fair criticism of his rookie years, that he didn't step up in the pocket enough and escape and kind of get out of trouble. And there were a few times he did, and it didn't work because the line would collapse on him. But that is a perfect example where there's a lane for him to step up, escape out, and he utilizes it. And then this is the power of Justin Fields, is where others would just go, look, I'm an athlete. I've always been the best player on the field. I'm just going to go ahead and run and pick up what yardage I can here. This just shows, no, look, I'm always trying to complete a pass before I'm forced to use my legs. So he steps up, gets out, has the ball tucked, as you said, and then decides, no, look, I'm going to complete this. So finds Mooney on the scramble drill. It's just beautiful.
And I've heard other people say that he's a run-first quarterback, which I've had to respectfully disagree with, because if he was a run-first quarterback, he would have been looking to run on that play. But he's in the situations that are breaking down around him in a dysfunctional offense, and he has the ability to run. Yeah, he's going to run more as a rookie. Your instincts are going to take over. Even Trubisky did. Josh Allen did. Lots of quarterbacks who have the ability to run that are not running quarterbacks per se are going to rely on their legs when it comes to those moments, when they're running for their lives, literally. So to me, that was just one of my favorite passes. And there's a couple more in here. Let's show some more, Kitty. So now we go to the Lions game. I had to pull this up just for Don Burr in case he watches this. So this one was a little bit overthrown, right?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is this is one of his earlier games where he's still developing chemistry with all these first-string receivers.
Right. But he still dropped back. What was that, a 5-step drop? Let's show that one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 7-step drop. Yeah, he should have nailed him right in the numbers, but hell, it was a completion. As a rookie, I'll take that. Still had good form. He just looks like a superstar to me. I mean, he's got the build for it. I think there's just a few more Lions ones left, but we know the good ones. This one right here, I'm sure you can talk about this for days. Yeah.
Yeah. You're just finding the honey hole there. Cover 2.
I wish running to this day. I wish Mooney would have tried to go out to the right. As I was watching the game and he cut inside, I was like, no, go to the sideline, and then he gets tackled. But let's look at that one more time, Kitty. They're on the 8-9 yard line. He's almost on his goal line throwing it. He just zings that ball down the field. Perfect pass. Like, these are the things that you want to see out of your rookie quarterback. And I don't understand how you can't take these kind of things that we've been, like these examples I'm showing you, and you actually think we're going to go into this season with a new head coach who seems to be a lot more functional, a new offensive coordinator, an actual offensive coordinator who seems to be a lot more functional, and come up with the idea that the Bears are going to be as bad as everyone says that they are. It's just, it makes no sense to me.
Yeah, it feels misinformed.
Yeah, there's a couple more here we can go through. Unless I think this might be the last one, or might be one more. This one, yes, we all know this one too.
Sweet.
The ball trackment skills by Mooney there, the ball placement by Justin. I mean, standing in the pocket, just zinging that ball right down into the breadbasket. In fact, I think that's what the announcers said at the time on the game. Right into the breadbasket. That's the thing I've complained about for the longest time with Trubisky. Cutler could do it, but the most recent quarterback we have to think about is Trubisky, and the best pass that he threw to me was one of his last, and that was the one that Javon Wims dropped in the playoffs on the flea flicker, I think, a deep ball that went right through the arms of Javon Wims, put out his arms, it just went right through the breadbasket. Ironically, that was his best throw, and I said at the time, I was like, finally, he's able to hit these nice passes, and he's going to be gone. They gave up on him too quick, in my opinion. Yeah, not to say that I don't compare him at all to Fields, because I think Fields is a hell of a more of a superstar than Trubisky ever could be, but just kind of my point that I think they gave up on him a little bit too quickly because he couldn't throw those passes, and then when he finally was able to, he was gone. So that's kind of why I want to watch him on the Steelers. But we're not talking about him; we're talking about Fields. But that's the kind of pass I'm talking about, just right in the breadbasket. The kid puts the arc on the ball when there needs to be arc. The ball lands right into the breadbasket of the receiver. It's all about just at this point, just becoming more of a veteran, learning this offense. And I think he's going to excel in it. I really do. I think my biggest hope, we have to look at the Packers defense, right? The Packers defense got really good this year with their draft picks. Holy shit. So, But I think the best time to beat the Packers is going to be in the beginning of the season in Green Bay. If you give me any Green Bay game in Green Bay, I'm always going to beg for it to be in the beginning of the season, because I'd rather go there when it's warm. It's nicer there in the second game of the season. Now they're not really going to have very much game film they're only going to have the Niners game. And I don't think they're going to be gelling very well with Aaron Rodgers' new wide receivers, because he doesn't have his bestie on the team. And I think you take into account that before that, the Niners aren't going to have any game film on them. And they're going to be starting Trey Lance, which of course we don't have any game film on him either, or very little. But to me, I think Trey Lance is the better quarterback, I think Justin Fields is the better quarterback between the two. So I'm very excited. Do you disagree?
No, I don't disagree. I'm listening to everything you're saying. I'm looking at Don Bear, who entered the chat.
There he goes.
Don Bear would like to know if I'd like a bag of M&Ms for Teven Jenkins.
Kitty, let's play that last Detroit pass for Don Bear.
Don Bear is. Do you really need?
Do you remember this smoking ass play, Don Bear? Yeah, I bet you do.
And Don Bear, do you really need Teven Jenkins? You have all the offensive line already. I love you too, Don Bear. But Siggy is asking, do I like Fields or Lance more? I like Fields a lot more. You guys, you're gonna get me killed. But look, I'm honest. As Nomad said, I had my own draft board. I'm probably the worst draft evaluator when I tell you all this.
You have the wrong guy in to talk Justin Fields with you, Dan.
It's like I had Zach Wilson as my QB1. I know that's blasphemy to a lot of people. I just thought he had special arm talent, freaky stuff. He didn't have a great situation with the Jets, and we could talk about that. But it's not like it was. That's the whole thing about this QB class, and that's what's so funny. And a guy I really respect, Dane Brugler, I was shocked when he put out the Beast last year. And for anybody that wants a little bit of a trip, Dane Brugler is one of the best in the business. And he had Justin Fields, his fourth quarterback, and that's where Fields went. And I was just shocked. But that's the thing. If I had Zach Wilson 1 and Trevor Lawrence 2 and Fields 3, and actually at the time, to be fair with you, I had Fields QB 2. I thought Lawrence was special. I love Lawrence's size, moves well for his size. I just questioned the offense coming from Clemson. And I thought Ohio State, not that it's some super pro offense, but there's a lot of advanced route concepts that Fields had to read out. And I saw him step up in big games. And I'm really kind of that guy with look, when it's big bank, take little bank. There was an opportunity for Trevor Lawrence to respond in that game that Justin Fields put up 6 touchdown passes, and you saw Fields take the lead there. So that's why he was my QB.
Hold on a second, Jordan. I think it looks like – so we don't have any video feed right now? Did I just lose my copyright feed? Is that what happened?
Yeah.
I showed one more pass to Don Burr. I got copyrighted.
Maybe can you talk or put a message into the chat that the stream will be back on? Just please be patient.
Yeah.
It's okay, Dan. This is gonna happen. That's why using film sucks, because you never know. I literally had 4 minutes of Seahawks film last week and there was no problem. And then we use 4 minutes DK film, problem. You use 2 or 3 minutes of Justin Fields film. It just goes, okay. Nick saying we're back. Cliff saying we're back. Sorry, I'm coaching up Dan here because the YouTube algorithm is so unpredictable. You never know what's going to trigger it.
Well, Don Bear, you got your wish. I was showing you the Bears smoking you on a Justin Fields pass, just smoking the Lions, and we lost our feed for it because I showed it one too many times.
I'm saying YouTube must be run by Don Burr. Don Burr saying Nomad made the screen go out. You guys play Detroit film, see what happens. Yeah, Detroit film is so bad that YouTube's like, just don't show the stream anymore. This is horrific to watch. Please, nobody should have to watch Lions games. That was a reality.
Oh boy, that's funny. I gotta say though, Don Burr is he's earned it, right?
To answer Sigbal's question without going too deep, I think Justin Fields was a more complete prospect than Trey Lance. I think Trey Lance definitively, without a doubt, landed in the best situation. I think he has all the skills. I also think that people aren't realizing that the guy has played 2 games, maybe three if you want to count the North Dakota State one, that one game of the COVID season. He guys played 3 games of football in the last 2 to 3 years. I mean, that's the real issue, is that I think he's in the best situation. Kyle Shanahan's a monster play caller. They've got good position players, wide receivers, running backs. But let's not forget that he's coming in as the season starter. I think that Kyle's going to try to make it easy for Trey coming into Chicago. But I also think the lack of film on Fields, the lack of film on the offense, and then Flus should have those guys, and Alan Williams should have those guys flying around to create real problems for Trey Lance. The one little caveat I will give, though, the one small caveat I have to give is that when the Colts played the 49ers last year, Kyle Shanahan ate them up on the first drive like you've never seen before. And the only reason the Colts won that game is the weather was complete crap. And it allowed the Colts to kind of get back in it and run the ball with Jonathan Taylor. And when it's that game, Jonathan Taylor's better than any mixture of Eli Mitchell and Trey Sermon and JaMychal Hasty. And that's what allowed the Colts to win. But let's not confuse it that Kyle Shanahan put Eberflus's defense in a blender last year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the one thing that kind of worries me on the other side is that they know the scheme. So they'll be able to defensively plan against it too without really having to have the game film on it, I guess, in a way.
I mean, Cliff brings up such a good point here. Like, I'm surprised the Niners didn't take Fields instead of Lance. That to me, I can find the tweet. It was funny because when we were playing the Niners and we saw Justin Fields have that magical run for a touchdown, it was at that moment I tweeted out, live tweeted something, and I still think this probably rings true for Kyle. As good as Trey Lance may continue to look, and maybe he'll be the best quarterback out of all of them, at that moment in time, you have to imagine Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch were just kind of kicking themselves, going, holy crap. Mm-hmm. Our guys sitting on the bench didn't do enough to push Jimmy Garoppolo out of here. And we're watching that dysfunctional offense that Matt Nagy runs. And we're watching this quarterback who we should have had dead to rights in the backfield. And somehow, some way, he just scored on our defense that we know is legit. We end up going to Green Bay and beating Green Bay in the playoffs. What did we do? We had every opportunity to take that guy, and we didn't. Now, like I said, who knows? Maybe Trey Lance becomes the best core thing since sliced bread. But as of right now, that point still stands.
Yeah, as they're watching him run, 50 yards around on the field for a touchdown on him, I had to imagine they were thinking the same thing.
It's wild.
It's going to be fun to watch the beginning of the season. That's for sure. For some reason, whenever I think about the Niners game, the first thought that comes to my head, the first image that comes to my head, is the Bears backing the Niners up to their own 2-yard line and getting a safety. I don't know why. I guess I'm going to call it. I'm going to call it the Bears get a safety in that game. The reason why I'm saying that is because it's just the first thing that comes to my mind. I don't know why. So I'm just going to call it. Bears get a safety in that game and we win it.
We'll see. I mean, I'm very interested to see what Justin Fields looks like this year. I got to choose my words carefully because I'm not down on Justin Fields. I think he's naturally prone to show a progression this year. But I think the topic around Justin Fields is an interesting one because I think he shown improvement in his mechanics and his footwork. I also think that we have to be very careful in saying it's all fixed because the live bullets are not flying right now. Let's see what happens when you've got Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith and Devontae Wyatt bearing down on you. And do you still keep that nice and tight delivery? And we'll see it. I tend to think he put enough work in, but you can go to ask the throwing coaches, Tom House, Coach Dado, about how many hours it takes to really change your motion. Tim Tebow was a guy that tried season after season after season. He's not the same talent as Justin Fields, but it takes a lot to refine that motion. I also, at the same time, as much as it sounds like I'm down on Fields, I'm finally at the point where, like I said, maybe you got me on a bad day today, but I think I've been pretty consistent with this point that I genuinely believe that it's time that we start to put the blame on the franchise, not the quarterback prospect. Now, I'll give you a perfect example. If you drafted Johnny Manziel and you're literally catching him in Vegas on the bye week and he's partying and everything like that, then sure, you can blame the quarterback. But at a certain point, this is where I'm officially at, where I'm done. You will not find me blaming Justin Fields under any circumstances, assuming he's not off partying, not getting off field conduct issues. You will never hear me blame Justin Fields for failing if he does in Chicago, because this is where I think we as a fan base need to stop scapegoating the organization and stop putting blame on the quarterbacks. You've had a guy that growing up in Georgia in a hotbed of football was a QB1 competing with 1A and 1B with Trevor Lawrence his whole life. Mm-hmm. Went to the QB camp in Santa Monica, forgetting what it's called, but I mean, who was Trent Dilfer was hosting it and things like that. It was on the QB1 Beyond the Lights. Took over the number one spot from Trevor Lawrence, then ended up playing his senior season, broke his wrist. Trevor Lawrence reclaimed it, but has been 1 and 2 with a guy that went number 1 in the draft. Outplayed him in college, has been successful every single place he's been. And now you want to sit here and tell me that, when he got to the Bears, he just must not have been that good of a quarterback. I just refuse to believe it, and I'm done with it. So
me too.
I tend to believe he'll be that guy, but let me just put it very clear. If for some reason it doesn't work out, he's not the guy. We move on. I will forever blame the Chicago Bears for that, not Justin Fields. It's about time where all of a sudden you can't continue to put it on the players.
If that happens, I will not be able to disagree with you at all. Yeah, if Justin Fields fails on the Bears, it is the Bears' fault. Period. I won't look at it any other way. I'll be pissed off if the Bears fail him. And one of my concerns with drafting a quarterback that high at all, even with Trubisky, was that knowing the Chicago media, they were going to lambaste him. They were going to beat him into the ground. They're just going to take a hammer and just steadily tap at his head until he's beat all the way into the ground, because the Chicago media is so, they don't know, they're relentless. I posted a video about Eberflus and his disclosure with injury, and then he talks about how he doesn't have to answer the injury questions.
Well, that shit drives me crazy.
Because he doesn't have to, right? And the next 4 questions are injury questions. So you're just trying. Are you a fan of the Bears, or are you just working? See, that's the problem. They're not fans, right? I mean, some of them may have grown up in the Chicagoland area, and they might be looking to acquire more people that grew up from each area to work for their respective teams, But you can't assume that everybody that covers the Bears in Chicago media is a Bears fan. They're just trying to do their job. So if you put Bears fan into their job, right, they're going to realize, I can't ask this question because I don't want the team to divulge information that shouldn't be known. But no, they're just trying to do their job. So they want the headline. So they're going to ask, somebody else is going to ask the question. And kudos to Adam Hogue, who I think is actually from Chicagoland, for putting it to bed and moving on and asking a different question in that situation. And so when you talk about quarterbacks, I mean, even with Rex Grossman, Rex Grossman was on his way to an MVP season until the media they started running with the narrative of small hands and all this shit, after they barely squeaked out a win against the Cardinals on Monday night or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. And after that, Rex Grossman went downhill. He was playing lights out. He had one bad game that game because he fumbled the ball a few times. And then the media just jumped on the narrative of this and that and this and that and small hands and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And it fucked with him for the rest of the season, so that he couldn't maintain focus, because he was having his confidence messed with. And you started to see that even with Trubisky, to where he started to show flashes, yet the media is just pounding on him. They're just beating him into the ground. And if that happens with Justin Fields, if he has one bad game or one thing goes wrong and the media starts lambasting him and starting to take him down, I'm going to fully blame it on the Chicago media if he fails. And that's going to be part of the Bears' problem too, because they're not sheltering him from that, and they're not putting him in the right situations. I guarantee, I understand he's the leader of the team. You're going to want to put him out there to be the spokesperson of the team, but I guess then you maybe need to give him some media relations handling to know how to. That should be the first thing they should be bringing everybody in when you get hired by the Bears to be whether you're a coach that's going to be on television talking or a player that's going to be on television talking. You almost need to go through some media training to know how to handle the damn media. And know how to not take what they're saying personally, so that it doesn't affect your psyche. And that's my biggest problem with the media. The other problem I have is they don't put mics out for the questions. They go and spend all this money on the brand new Hallis Hall, but they don't give every media member their own mic, so that all you hear is. And then you're like, yeah, and then that's a good question. The reason why we did that is because we had to go downfield on that play, and you're like, who the hell are they talking about? So, yeah, I just wish the media would let up a little bit. Just try to remember that you don't want to harm the team by asking stupid questions, and if they're trying to deflect the questions, don't keep pushing on it. Don't take down our quarterback, please.
Media is a tough crowd in Chicago. No other way to put it. I think.
How's your media? How's your media out there?
It's the problem is that it sounds like it's negative. I wish that the organization would be a little more forward-coming about injuries. I know that they don't have to, and that's why they're talking about, look, we don't have to disclose that. Look, the reality is that, does it really hurt you to say that 4 weeks before the regular season Your Thomas Graham, your 6th-round rookie from last year, has a little bit of a hamstring issue, and we don't know what role it's going to play. Even though Teven Young's a fully capable nickel, I'm not sure you really need to worry about any competitive advantage there. But the point remains the same, that if you are going to go out there and say, I'm not going to discuss that, it's a tough game because in many ways I agree with you. Just move on. If the guy literally said he's not going to tell you, or Ryan Poles, for example, I'm not going to talk about Roquan's contract, and then for the next 10 minutes, the entire media just continues to barrage him with questions about Roquan. At some point, I get it. It's your job. You need to try to dig out and find out any information you can. But at some point, you do have to change the topic, move on. Because as you directly saw, and it's funny, this is the talk about the media, is that you can't be happy either way. Ryan Poles comes out and says, I'm not going to talk about Roquan Smith's contract. They barrage him for 10 minutes about Roquan Smith's contract. You can tell he's clearly irritated and frustrated that this is all that and he's just going to keep having to say, yeah, I'm not really going to talk about that. I said I was going to talk about Roquan. And then all of a sudden, you get some report, I think it was Dion Miller, bless her soul, that was like, you look really upset. It's like, well, how about we just, like, maybe we can talk about something else other than the thing I said I wasn't going to talk about.
That's what I mean. Do they do that in LA? Like, if they say, I'm not talking about this, do formal reporters ask the same damn question right after this?
I don't think they do, but I don't. Yeah. Unlike Don Bear, I don't watch other teams' media press conferences and wonder what they're doing. It's it's not how I spend my time.
All right. Well, I think we've pretty much exhausted that subject. Why don't we just go ahead and if there's any other last questions we can pull up here. If anyone has anything else they'd like to ask or ask Jordan and I, or would I play Roquan Smith at will or middle? He's definitely a will.
Yeah. I agree. I think there's a situation where in that even front, in that 4-3, I mean, we talk about Roquan Smith. One of his issues is just his diminutive stature. He's kind of short and sawed off. So if he's getting held up by blockers, he's going to have a hard time stacking and shedding. So have that guy chase down the play with his lateral agility and speed from the backside and be able to kind of tackle it from the backside of the play. I think he's much more able to impact the game in that way than putting him at the mic.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree any more with that. Let's see. We have any other questions? Anyone else have any questions for us? If not, we can kind of get this wrapped up because I have jury duty tomorrow. So
fun.
I can't stay up too late tonight.
I hear you.
We'll see if I actually get called in, though. I have to go kind of wait, and then we'll see if I get called. If I do, then I meant to ask you what yours was. In fact, I pulled up the schedule to see if you would adhere to it.
I hate this question. Not a bad thing. I'll answer it, Siggy, just because it puts you on the spot, and I feel like I lose either way I go. So I'll hedge my bet a little bit. I've always agreed that 11 wins to me is pie in the sky. Every single little thing goes right. Now, I also don't necessarily think that just so far, 4 or 5 months that we've had, nothing has gone squeaky clean perfect.
Right.
But so 11 wins top, everything goes right. 9 wins really kind of being that middle ground. I think, Justin Fields shows up. That was the idea that maybe Teven Jenkins would show up and prove himself as a tackle. So in that case, I'll just give you the absolute low end ceiling. Every single thing goes wrong within reason. Justin Fields gets hurt in week 1, God forbid, and tears his ACL. All bets are off. We maybe win 3 or 4 games. But assuming he stays healthy, offense stays mostly on track, I think that you're talking about a 6 to 7 win basement team at the absolute worst.
That's what I thought you were going to say.
Yeah.
I was going to say 6 and 11.
Yeah, I mean, I really think it's even more 7. I mean, just I'll kind of rattle off the ones that I think you probably win fairly easy. I think you beat the Texans. I think you beat the Giants. I think you beat the Falcons. That's 3. You're probably, we'll see what happens with the Niners. And that's where a lot of people just assume that Zach Wilson had a bad rookie year. Trey Lance, we don't know what he is. Therefore, Justin Fields is better. They're going to win. I tend to agree. But even if we just split those, maybe they beat the Niners but lose to the Jets. I think that they end up maybe winning a game. And, the Dolphins, I think the Dolphins coming to Chicago is not going to be an easy game for the Dolphins. I think they beat the Dolphins. So that's where I'm saying all of a sudden you start racking them up. I take Justin Fields over me taking Jalen Hurts. So I think that as good as the Eagles are, I would have the Bears beating a team like the Eagles. So in that scenario, you're talking about Eagles, Giants, I guess 49ers, if you're not going to take the Jets, Dolphins, beating the Lions twice. I mean, we're already at 6 there. It's a situation where
you have them losing both games to the Packers.
I feel very confident that they will lose the second one to the Packers. I am more optimistic in the first showing, but I also said this, and I'm done betting on the Bears to beat the Packers until Aaron Rodgers is no longer I can't do it, man. I've watched that man tear my heart out too many times to just sit there and say that the Bears are all of a sudden going to come in there and stop them. I just can't.
Do you know how many times I've said that to anybody that knows me? I immediately say, "Oh, we got it." So we start off 0-2, but I'm a little bit more optimistic this year because we're playing Green Bay so early. That's if we played Green Bay Game 7 and then they came into Chicago, Game 12 or something, I would take Green Bay both games.
I mean, I'll tell you, I don't have them 0-2. I think that they beat the Niners. And then I think if they're going to drop one out of those first two, I think they drop it to Green Bay. I mean, let me put it this way. The Niners have Don Bear, as much as we joke with him, he had made a comment earlier that I tend to agree with. We're worried about the 49ers offense. The defense is the one to worry about. The 49ers defense is real. But if you think I'm saying that about the Niners, the Packers have just continued to invest and dump assets into that defense. And so you can talk all day and night about Aaron Rodgers not having his guys, but if we're talking about both defenses going against their respective opposing quarterbacks, I think the Bears are in for a real tough day against that Packers defense and that Packers front seven. Not even talking about Jair Alexander, Adrian Amos, Darnell Savage, Eric Stokes. We'll leave those guys out. Just talking about Preston Smith, Devontae Wyatt, Kenny Clark, who's the Rashawn Gary. I mean, Quay Walker, Devondre Campbell. I think you're going to have a lot harder of a time playing those guys if you're the Bears than Aaron Rodgers is going to have playing this Bears defense. That's
why I take my only hope is early in the season, defense isn't going to be gelled with the new. I mean, those rookies are going to be starting, so I just feel that's the best opportunity. That's why I'm usually not that optimistic about beating the Packers, but I am going to take it this year because I'm just getting overly confident with Justin Fields, and I think it might be taking me into la la land. So it's nice to have, I know I'm going to be wrong. I mean, are they really going to win 11 games? I mean, probably
if
not.
If they win 11 games, I don't know, man. I'll make your charity a choice. I have no reason to not want that.
Right, me either. But I know I sound like, just super fan Dan over here talking 11-6 with this team when everyone else is thinking gutter. But I don't know. I just feel something about it different.
You have Siggy Ball. Like I'm going to tackle Don Burr's comment and Siggy Ball's all at one time. Siggy Ball saying the Packers wide receivers are horrible, and then Don Burr saying he doesn't agree that I think that the Bears will beat the Eagles because of their wide receiver room. I mean, this is the thing to keep in mind. And Steve Sigman saying Packers are the worst wide receiver core. The thing and I think we'd all agree with this as Bears fans, the quarterback is the straw that stirs the drink. They often can lift up wide receiver talent. It's what you saw Andrew Luck do all those years with the Colts. T.Y. Hilton was really their only guy. Darnell Mooney's really the only guy on the Bears. And then they were throwing to, who are they? Philip Dorsett and a few, I'm forgetting the names. But, I mean, that's how bad it was. If you had to assume, let's just say that's correct, the Packers have the worst wide receiver core. Do you or do you not believe that Aaron Rodgers would be the guy to lift up that bad receiving core, to be competent players for him? In the same way that I'm going to tackle Don Burr's question, which is if I have to bet on teams, sure, the Eagles are a more complete team. But if we're talking about how important the quarterback position is and raising up the talent around them, I'm betting on Justin Fields to raise up the talent around him with the Bears more than I would bet on Jalen Hurts to do the same for the Eagles. And when they come together, I'm taking the better quarterback in that matchup. That's my point.
Well, and I think that the secondary that we've just bolstered, that I'm not really worried about the Eagles wide receivers if our secondary is really the strength of our team, like it seems to be.
So the secondary seems that you want to talk about like, okay, I mean, no man's been kind of prodding me like you're being negative. If you want to hear some positive takes, I have so much faith in the secondary. I mean, they are really what I think is going to propel this team, and this is where Don Bear is going to laugh. Like the defense, the Bears defense to me will be hovering around top 10 in DVOA. you want my Dan, the Superman fan, 11-6. My super bet on that is I have the Bears defense finishing around, give it 10 to 13th in defensive DVOA, because that's how strongly I feel this defense is going to be a tough out for a lot of teams, because they're going to demand every offense play them tough, play them honest, play them hard. It's going to be a pack your hard hat and lunch type of defense, and nothing's going to be free. And I think that that's going to propel them to be competitive.
That's exactly what I think too. So that's kind of where I get my 11-6 from too. Is not just the Fields blow up, but the defense coming on under the new regime, and that secondary is just Brisker and Gordon. To me, are they're two people. They're two players that could be Hall of Famers to me. That's how I view them. Like, I mean, they stay healthy, they could be Hall of Famers.
I mean, this is you just and it's training camp's funny. That's where, as much as I'm telling you, Bobby Wagner and Leonard Floyd and Aaron Donald are having a field day, or Allen Robinson looks great, it's still training camp. Mm-hmm. Quarterbacks are wearing red jerseys; they're not allowed to get hit. But I mean, you've seen Kyler Gordon look phenomenal in coverage. You've seen Brisker continue to get his hands on balls. I mean, I haven't seen a full clip of the interception on Fields where he steps in front of Kmet and takes it, but I hate to say that's probably on, whether it's on Kmet or Fields. The whole point is nobody reported that was like a miscommunication or anything. That was strictly Brisker robbing the route and picking it off. Mm-hmm. These are your two top picks where, look, I can talk all day and night about how I wish Alec Pierce would have been the guy, or they would have done something different. But that's what you want to see. And mm-hmm. This is where, as much as I may question process and all the problems with polls, the areas that are very clearly positive is that what you are hoping to see is when you're spending two top 50 picks, that those guys immediately come in and show their worth to the team. And there's absolutely zero question so far mm-hmm. that Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker have shown that they belong and that they're actually making plays in that secondary.
That they are the starters.
Yeah, that's big.
They're not competing for the positions. They're the starters. And in fact, they're moving Gordon around all over the place because he's doing so well. So it just goes to show the confidence that they have in him. And it's gonna the sky's the limit for the secondary. Plus we're deep too. So
Cliff talks here about
thanks,
definite. Dave. Cliff talks about definite improvement with the DBs from last season. I mean, that's so important. And Don, I'm joking with you here because I see you in the chat. I know you're never going to give love to the Bears, but you're talking about how Hurts will have all this time with the Eagles' offensive line, for sure. But if you're going to give credit to what we think is going to happen with certain teams, the thing that if anybody that was watching Bears ball, which is all the fans here, maybe not you, Don, but the Bears secondary got torched so often last year. Mm-hmm. It's the reason that Ben could come back in the Steelers game. It's the reason why, ultimately when Justin Fields had the Niners game close, mm-hmm. Jimmy Garoppolo just took him down the field and scored again. It was just a problem. You had Tyler Huntley coming in and shredding the defense. So with that secondary shored up, you can manufacture pressure, and that's what I think you're going to see. The secondary, the coverage is the coverage, and Nomad saying running the ball well, playing hellacious defense. Yeah, I mean, that's Nomad. You're spot on. That's the whole idea with what they're hoping to do with Trey Lance, what Jimmy Garoppolo's game has been, what Jalen Hurts' game has been. Can you just make 5 to 7 throws a game and then let the defense keep the game tight? We'll run the ball well. We'll have a good offensive line. It's okay. That's the idea. And Jalen Johnson, back to my point, Jalen Johnson had said, it's really not that hard, this defense. Cover 2 is cover 2, cover 4 is cover 4, cover 6. It's all the same coverage. Your coverage dictates the front. So because of that, you now can say the defensive secondary is shored up. Okay, but what about the pressure? They don't have Khalil Mack. You can generate pressure. You can overload sides of front. Mm-hmm. You can drop defensive ends, then bring, simulated pressures or creepers. You can run fire zones. That's the way to generate the pressure mm-hmm. and then force a bad throw into that stingy and hungry secondary that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Coverage sacks, coverage interceptions.
Yes,
those are going to be things to track.
I mean, nobody wants to talk about this, and I'm very high on what the Colts had in their defense. The Colts secondary has never been this good. Never. They were relying on Rock Ya-Sin, Xavier Rhodes, Isaiah Rodgers, Anthony Ches something, but I mean it's been a bunch of no names compared to Tavon Young, who has legitimately been one of the good nickel corners when he's healthy. Thomas Graham, who has instincts and could be a player. Jalen Johnson has proven himself as an outside boundary corner. Kyler Gordon is showing that way. Eddie Jackson has at least shown at one time on paper that he was one of the most elite safeties in the game in 2018. If you can get him back to even 1.5 of that, 0.5, if you will, not even getting him back to where he absolutely was. And then Brisker looks that way. It's a better secondary than the Colts have ever had. And the Colts, that's why the Colts were always hovering around that top 10 DVOA. I don't think it's far to say that would be the case.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I like what Steve here. The Bears have an I dare you to pass defense, and I dare you to run linebacker and Smith. Pressure up the middle is key. Well, Smith's going to be playing he's going to be playing the outside on the will side, so we're looking at Morrow up the middle. If in this defense, you got to have the pigs up front.
Well, and see, nobody wants to talk about this, Dan. This is the funny part. The Colts had waves of dudes. I get that. Mm-hmm. And Kwity Paye was a first rounder, all the potential, but it wasn't some Khalil Mack right out the gate last year. Mm-hmm. And why was Kwity Paye a first round pick? Because they've struggled to get pass rush, bona fide Khalil Mack guys. It's why they've had to go with Al-Qadim Muhammad, a former 6th round pick. It's why they've had to go with they drafted a guy who had a torn Achilles in Deo Odeyingbo out of Vanderbilt last year, and Kwity Paye and Tyquan Lewis, and Grover Stewart. These guys that none of these guys are Khalil Mack, Von Miller, Nick Bosa, Joey Bosa, TJ Watt, and they were still able to get the pressure because they're just keeping them fresh.
Right.
And that's the whole point is everybody wants to talk about the Bears don't have this great defensive front and they don't have Khalil Mack anymore. But what stops Travis Gibson from being an Al-Qadim Muhammad? Well, I guess we have him, a Tyquan Lewis, a Deo Odeyingbo, guys like Ben Banogu. These are the guys that you're just keeping them fresh. Gibson, and then it's Al-Qadim Muhammad, and then it's Charles Snowden, and then it's Robert Quinn. And Rob Nomad, I'm getting there, Robert. You can't sit there and say that this defense doesn't have all the prerequisite pieces that the Colts had. It does.
And like Flus said himself in the beginning, he said that his plan is to have everyone playing 65% of the snaps. He wants to have this rotation of his. I don't know if he's talking about his starters or just his 1-2s are going to be rotating that. But
I think it's the waves on the line specifically. Don't get me wrong. You'll swap out your DBs when they get tired, and you heard Alan Williams talking about that.
Right.
What we're trying to do now is make sure that every defensive player, every player understands where their true outer limits are, so that when they hit their outer limits, they know I can go no further. I need a blow. Give me, a tap on the helmet. I need out. And I think that when you're talking about that 65%, specifically, that's on the line. I can't have Robert Quinn at 100% if I'm keeping him in on every snap. What I need to do is keep you fresh so that when it's 3rd and 8 and I desperately need pressure, Robert Quinn, you've been sitting out the last 6 plays. Can I get you in there at 100%?
Right.
That's the goal.
Yeah. I think they're going to get there. I hope they will. Well, I think that's probably enough here. Oh, we got one more. Oh, Cliff has one more thing to say here.
And one more point for the future, regardless of what the Bears do this season, next offseason is going to be special. If the Bears look decent by the end of the season. Yeah, and I'll kind of tie this into Don Burr. Don, I watch Brett Coleman, does good work with the podcast. I know they're doing the NFC North this week. That goes for anybody. They'll be covering the Bears tomorrow. They're doing an in-season, every single team, and a breakdown of their offseason expectations for next year. One of their co-hosts, CJ Snyder, works for Windy City Gridiron, is a Bears fan. Brett follows the Bears closely. So if you're looking for Bears content, Bootleg Podcast, great outlet there. Don, I'll watch the Lions one. I'm sure it was very positive, but I'll touch on this with Cliff talking about what the Bears look like next year. And I know, Matt, even you, I know you said you want some positivity. As much as Don is feeling the excitement about what the Lions have brewing this year, understand that the Bears, very similarly, Don, and to Nomad's point, to Cliff's, it's going to be a transitional year in 2022. But as far as 2023 goes, assuming that Justin Fields steps up to the plate, you have your guy. You're flush with cash. And for the first time in a while, and nobody wants to give the Bears credit for this, is I don't actually think Ryan Pace drafted bad players. I just think his method of getting to those players was the issue.
Yeah.
Bears actually have draft capital assets now. Now,
Right.
as I said earlier, it's one thing to have the picks. You need to be able to hit on those. But you're getting a very clear showing that, at least early, Nomad, I mean, just give you an example, because I know you were talking about how good the offensive line is. I can't get there yet because we haven't seen them play even preseason, haven't seen them with pads on yet until tomorrow. We don't really know what you have there until the pads come on. Maybe they're as all-star players as Brisker and Gordon, and then holy shit, Ryan Poles is the best drafter you've ever seen. The guy is picking offensive linemen at the back end of the draft, and they're all-stars. But at least take what you know. That's my whole point.
Mm-hmm.
The facts of the evidence are that his first 2 picks, where pads aren't nearly as important, Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker, have shown to be early hits. If you can bet that Ryan Poles is a solid drafter, in 2023, Cliff, to your point, the Bears are going to be flush with cash, have a lot of draft picks, have a lot of assets. That should be really allowing them to restock the cupboard in a way that, unfortunately, the 2021 Bears, with Pace at the helm, drained all of the talent out of that cupboard and left nothing there to rebuild, and that's the problem.
Absolutely, 100% agree. And just to Don's point, I do watch Brett Coleman. He is he's awesome. He does some really good stuff on YouTube, and I will go check that out, Don, just to make you feel better. I really do think that the Lions had a really good draft this year. I can't disagree with him. I know why. I know why he's excited, and I do like the head coach, Campbell.
Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes.
I mean, I can see why you'd be excited about that head coach and the team that you're building there. I definitely understand that, Don. That's for sure. It's going to be fun playing each other again. You know, with the talent that you put on that team. That wide receiver could be a Hall of Famer, or he could break his leg on the first play. He's so skinny, you know. So, but there's a lot of talent on that roster, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens this year with the entire NFC North. I had one more question I wanted to pull up from J2K before we go. This would be a good question for you, Jordan.
Yeah, mesh. For those that aren't familiar, and I'd be too much to ask to draw it, but just kind of hang with me here. You can run it wide. You can run it in close formations. But the whole idea is you have a rail route from your halfback that is kind of a wheel route coming out of the back. You have your 2 receivers running essentially drags or crossers, short, shallow, 2 to 5 yard crossers. And then traditionally you have a deeper hook player that comes and hooks over the middle about 10 yards deep, middle of the field. And the way you're supposed to read that out is essentially read your crossers, read your deep curl, and then if for some reason your alert is really that whole shot, that wheel, if the halfback for some reason breaks out on the wheel and nobody's there, he gets deeper than coverage because you're driving the safety up to cover that deep curl, and the wheel route gets out behind it, nobody's there, you'll take that alert. But traditionally, the short area reading it is crossers 1, 2, and then if not, I dump over to the curl, assuming nobody's there, and then that's kind of how the play was run. I think, to answer your question, J2K, that's a classic West Coast concept. Mm-hmm. Everybody usually runs it. Nagy even ran it a little bit. I think that you'll see mesh ran. Mm-hmm. Really what I'm interested to see is I don't feel like a lot of people talk about this, but the Packers, if it's anything like what the Packers have ran, the Packers ran so many RPOs last year, like so many. And what I'm curious about is Fields, to your point, Dan, he's had to really clean up that release and get it out quick. The whole point of these RPOs is I need to read it quick, and if I do read it quick and we're throwing, I need to bullet it in there quickly before my offensive line get downfield too much and things of that sort. Right. So what I'm curious about is how much of that RPO game will transfer over, and do they believe Fields has been quick enough to shorten up the release and throw it in there on the RPO game? But yes, I mean, long and short, mesh will absolutely be part of that game plan.
Absolutely, it will be, yeah. I have one more question for you before we wrap this up, Jordan. My brain likes to go into little la-la lands about like different things that we might be able to do. What do you think about the possibility of running some T formation with Monty, Herbert, Blazingame, and run the T formation and some outside zone concepts? What do you think about that as far as bringing your fullback up in those zone concepts to block with, particularly if we might have an offensive line issue?
Yeah, it's fine. It's like wishbone offense. I think it's interesting. I think you can certainly you may see some of that. I mean, like for example,
I'm a big fan of the wishbone. I want to see it brought back.
Kellen Moore would run a lot of formations like this, and he'd actually put his offensive lineman back there in Dallas. I think there's a place for it, but I also think it's much more niche nowadays. But this is where, and I don't know. We'll see. Nobody knows what Luke Getsy is. If I had to, ask me to put a bet on it, I will bet the under on this. I do not believe Luke Getsy will do this. I don't think he's nearly as advanced in the running concepts the way that Mike McDaniel or Greg Roman is. But J2K was saying like wide zone RPO is awesome. Well, that's kind of the same wishbone idea as pistol offense, having multiple backs back there. It really opens up the option to do triple options, reverses, jet touch passes, power O, rolling out of the backfield. I don't know how much you're going to see that compared to the traditional 11 personnel wide zone. You'll either have your fullback. Some of it you'll have true 22 personnel, 12 personnel, 21 personnel, where you'll have the fullback in the I formation or in the strong I. Mm-hmm. But actually, what I anticipate is you're going to see a lot more of the Kyle Juszczyk role, where your fullback is actually out on the wing and is used as a snap motion guy.
Yeah. Where it looks like you're in a single back set.
Correct.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. That's what I've been noticing the Rams run a lot of. I was noticing the Packers were doing that a lot as well. So,
I mean, it's funny you asked that because like J2K is kind of harping on something I tweeted out recently as I said, God, I just wish and pray that the Bears would ultimately use that option game, because I actually think Fields runs a lot like our Robert Griffin. Mm-hmm. Not a strong runner, not a guy that's like going to bash you like Josh Allen, but as far as a track speed, a true runner that can actually go 70 yards with his speed, I think if you can find a way to weaponize that and get Fields out on the boundary, forcing that read option, faking it, getting a linebacker to bite, and then pulling off around the alley, I just think it'll be deadly.
I agree. Well, listen, Jordan, I got my dog whining behind me right now because she wants to be not locked in my office anymore. Kitty is not home right now. She's visiting her mother, so she's running this from a remote location. So even better, excellent job, Kitty. Love you. Yes, appreciate this. Truly. Jordan, anything you want to plug before we go?
Not too much. I mean, those that are mostly here know the work that we do because we've had you over on Barroom. But Bare Necessities, Thursday evenings, 8 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Central, 11 p.m. Eastern. No, I mean, this is the Life podcast. I'm going to let you in all this. I have no idea what we're doing Thursday. I kind of try to figure out what the plan is. I know people don't really want to hear too much about Seahawks or Bills anymore, so we'll see. Hopefully there'll be more stories, whether it be Teven Jenkins or the offensive line in the first days of pads. That's really what I'd love to get a lot of interesting feedback. So I'll put that out to the community too. If you're actually going to training camp, spend some time looking at the offensive line. Nomad, I mean, I don't know where you live, but Nomad's very high in the offensive line. I hope you're right. I think this is the time we're really going to be able to see what that offensive line has in it once the pads come on. Are they kicking ass? Because one of the early talks has been that the pressure's been in Justin's face every day of camp so far. But I also understand some of that's like, yeah, you don't have offensive line doing everything possible to cut the knees out from under the defensive line and things like that. So I'm excited to see that. But yeah, you can catch me on Barroom, Bare Necessities, Thursday evenings. And Kitty, Dan, Mr. Shorty, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. This. It's been wonderful and always insightful, and enjoy talking with you. So thank
you. Jordan, thank you very much for coming on. I mean, this is only I did a live pod last weekend, but it was just something I did just to get something off my chest about Eberflus. But thank you for coming on and being my second guest. This has been an awesome conversation. You're so insightful, and just the knowledge that you have of the game is kind of embarrassing to me. So it's great to be in your presence and have you just rattling all this stuff that's stuck in your head out. And it's amazing just to hear you talk, because either you're really baffling us with bullshit or you really know what you're talking about. So I choose to take the
one of the two. Well, I guess we'll figure out.
I choose to take the you know what you're talking about.
I'm either going to be massively wrong or massively right. Either way, it'll be hilarious to watch from afar. So,
well, as Jordan said, you can check him out on Thursday night on Bare Necessities. I believe I'll be joining you again this Thursday, if I'm correct. So I guess we'll see you all again on Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific time, 11 p.m. Eastern time. And you can find me at Mr. Shorty on Twitter or at Bears_. Country _ podcast. I don't know why I made it that way. It's so hard for me to say. Just
Bears
at Mr. Short
Country _ podcast on Twitter.
Or Bears Country Podcast with an underscore between each word. How about
There you
that?
go.
On Twitter. And I plan on doing this podcast on every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time until the season starts. I do not want to compete with Monday Night Football after that, so I probably will move it over to like a Wednesday or something like that.
Tuesdays.
But I'm looking to do maybe a pregame podcast, maybe even a postgame podcast. And I'm going to be in location in Chicago for the month of September. And I'm also looking to do maybe some live podcasts out at like a Bears bar. And rather than pulling in the chat questions, I'm thinking about pulling in some patrons from wherever I'm at, and they can get on the screen and just talk with me, and we can kind of talk in real time. And if I end up doing that, I'm very interested to see how that goes. Wish me luck. But that's something I do have kind of in the wings. I'm looking to make happen in the next month or so. So tune in for that. Until then, thank you all very much for joining us in chat tonight. This has been great. Love all of you. Jordan, we'll see you on Thursday. And until then, bear down.
Yeah.
Nope, hold on. I said it wrong. Until then, Bears.
Bear down, everybody.
Bears. Bears Country Podcast.
Oh.